There's one video I just watched that is definitely well worth watching. So I'll put a link below to it, but he's describing a lot of what's really going on, that we may not be putting the pieces of the puzzle together yet. Basically, what has happened is, we had our constitutions and our ways of life, but those ways of life were so easily able to be influenced. And we're not really seeing that you can go off to native people and think that they got dominated, but they didn't necessarily get dominated. They allowed themselves to be dominated by temptation. And they, it's probably a group that's probably a little painful to hear that, but you got to see where you went wrong, so that when we put our systems back together, that we won't be able to be manipulated again. When you see the U.S. Constitution, something's wrong within that Constitution for all of this criminal entity to take place. And what I've seen happen is, first of all, everybody wants greed. Everybody wants the American dream. Everybody wants stuff. And while you want stuff, you want to get a job so you can afford to get stuff. So, when you want more of your stuff, your complaints, what you support within your government systems, is going to be the corporate world. The corporate world is getting you all the jobs that you want to hang on to so you can buy your stuff. So while the corporate world is actually creating a lot of social problems, and people are complaining about those social problems for thousands of years, but government never ever listens to that, because they're so focused on the corporate world and what the corporate world needs, because what you ultimately want is your stuff. And it's like, as soon as the guys on the bottom decide to, okay, greed is not exactly the best way. Stuff is not going to bring me happiness. Relationships with my family is a lot more important, something my own family should be learning that lesson. I have an abusive ex-husband that it was all greed, didn't really pay attention to family. He was always paying attention to self, and through the abuse, he ended up manipulating most of my kids to believe in greed and not family. And that's why family, in my situation, is not communicating effectively, because evil does influence. Evil has a lot of temptation. Evil has a story to get you to manipulate your belief systems to believe things that aren't really true. In my own situation, I know that my kids are saying the exact same words their father has been saying for years. Where did they get that from? The influence of listening to their father, who is not showing them love. They're desperate for love from these people and want them, him to be their answer, and he's only the answer for himself, not his kids. And it's the same thing with our government systems. That if the corporate world wants to get away with shit, then they infiltrate government. And they take over government jobs and pretend to be their politicians, but they're not politicians. They're actually the corporate world representing themselves. But what they fail to realize is that game still plays out. There's the cycles within cycles, patterns within patterns. And although the smart people decided to infiltrate government and represent themselves, they haven't quite really connected the dots that we're all human and we all have a lot of intelligence, that eventually the little guy has infiltrated the government system and releasing all of the information out. So it's like, no matter how evil you want to be, how greedy you want to be, how manipulating and, controlling you want to be, all you're doing is teaching your enemy how to do it. And your enemy is now going to imitate you and do exactly what you've done. So it's like, there's a hell of a lot more good than there is bad in the world. And especially when bad is only a few of them and you're dominating the global population. Do you not think the global population is now infiltrating all of the evilness that's going on, and now it's exposed? You cannot stop WikiLeaks. No matter how much they want to come and attack this guy, This guy is smarter than the government. The government doesn't realize that. Where do you get your hackers? Where do you learn how to hack? From the little guy. When you see somebody hacks into your military, you give them a job. You know, this is where hackers end up learning their skill, is by hacking the government systems. And then, you know, you think that you're smarter by hiring this guy, but you're not. You're also teaching guys that you aren't hiring how to be better than you are, because once a hacker develops a security system, it just opens the door for other hackers trying to hack into what you think is secure. It's a friggin' game. They love this. They're born to hack. And some of these really, really massive hackers, like Julian Assange, just didn't take the money from the government and decided to say, you know what, I'm going to use all of these other hackers against you. So there's no shutting this guy down. There's no shutting this information down, no matter how much, you know, evil thinks that they've got some power. They're losing every single ounce of power that they've got because they've been infiltrated and don't know it yet. And I mean, there is this magic key that thousands and thousands of people have access to this information, and it's going to get exposed by we the people. Us little people aren't so little. You underestimated the little people. That's where you went wrong, because you just taught us how to do it, and we're damn good at it. And we don't need your paperwork to say we've got an education. We can get our education freely on the internet. Thank you for providing the internet. You're the one that made it. and I really say that anybody that really wants a good education, go on the internet. You can learn how to be a doctor. You can learn how to be any professional you want, and you don't need to pay a government system or an education system that's only owned by corrupt people. You don't have to pay anything to get an education these days. I've even met somebody that is getting spending all her money on an education system only to write her thesis about you're more educated without an education. And it's getting a lot of interest with a lot of people within the economic system that, oh, can I hire somebody without an education, without that piece of paper, and actually get a better job done? And she's proving in her theories, yes, you can. I've seen some of the wildest technology. Free energy, for example, is coming out from a lot of people that don't have an education. They can learn anything about mechanics. They can learn anything about engineering and solar, every single thing that you possibly want to know. These bright guys like writing books about what they know, and they like publishing on the internet. So you can find and research anything you possibly want on the internet. So it's like, burn to the bad guys, because you can't stop this. I mean, the more you try to stop it, you're only building your own cage that you're living in. And I'd really, really like to, one of these cables that came out, Hillary Clinton was made a comment about another president of how she's handling stress. Hillary, how are you handling the stress these days? How many pills are you taking? Are you on any antidepressants? Are you on any, thing to calm those nerves right about now? I'd really like to know how you're handling your stress, because it's coming down big time. And, your support of your, sexually abusive husband is kind of like in your face. Having sex with kids, what, the same age as your daughter in the White House, and it all depends on the word is? You guys are coming down. How you handling the stress so far? Peace out.